Have you ever felt the existential dread of imagining your life fly by, passing day by day, while you toil away at a job that you hate, just for some delayed retirement? What about the preemptive guilt you feel when you imagine missing one of your kids' soccer games, or never starting that photography business that you've always been wanting to start? But what if I told you that retirement could come much sooner than you probably thought? Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is CJ, and I'm a software engineer and investor living in Chicago. And today I wanted to talk to you about FIRE. And I'm not talking about the fire that cooks food or gives off heat. What I'm actually talking about is an acronym that stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. In this video, I'll cover what financial independence is, 3 different approaches to FIRE with a few example scenarios, and both the pros and cons of the FIRE movement. Okay, let's get started. Okay, first off, let's talk about what financial independence is. Simply put, financial independence is when the return on your investments is enough to cover your living expenses indefinitely. If you think about it, the standard course of action for most Americans is to work until you're age 65 and then live off of your savings and investments for the rest of your life. In this situation, you're trading your time for money, maximizing your savings in a series of potentially unfulfilling jobs at the expense of the life you truly want to live. There's another approach to life that allows you to control how you spend your time without having to worry about money, and that's the FIRE movement. FIRE is a movement in which people try to obtain financial independence as quickly as possible, usually within your 30s or 40s, but some are even able to obtain it within their 20s. I first learned about the FIRE movement after listening to Tim Ferriss's podcast interview with Mr. Money Mustache, aka Pete Adney. Mr. Money Mustache is a popular personal finance personality who retired with his wife and son at the age of 30. I'll leave a link to the Tim Ferriss podcast interview as well as Mr. Money Mustache's TED Talk in the description below. Mr. Money Mustache and his wife were both software engineers and worked for about a decade, all while investing in a low-cost index fund to accumulate their wealth before they started their FIRE journey. At the time of the interview, Mr. Money Mustache and his family were living in Boulder, Colorado on $25,000 per year, slowly withdrawing from their accumulated investments to cover their daily expenses. This was a super inspiring story for me, and it begged the question, well, how can I reach financial independence? Broadly speaking, there are a few ways that you can reach financial independence. You can either increase your savings, increase your income, or increase both simultaneously. Let's go through a few examples to see what kind of time frame we might expect to reach our crossover point to financial independence. For the sake of example, let's assume that our household income is $100,000 and our annual expenses is $36,000 or $3,000 per month. Additionally, let's assume that our expected annual rate of return is 7%, which is right around the historical return for the S&P 500. Lastly, let's assume a 4% withdrawal rate into perpetuity to withdraw from our investments after we retired. With a savings rate of 64%, we'll need to continue earning that $100,000 and investing our savings into a low-cost index fund for about 10 years until we hit our crossover point to financial independence. Now that doesn't seem too far-fetched, does it? It might be helpful to explore how tweaking our savings or income can affect our time horizon. If we increase our annual income to $110,000, it will take about 9 years to reach financial independence. On top of that, if we assume our annual expenses are only $32,000 per year or around $2,700 per month, we'll be able to retire in just over 8 years. On the flip side, if our expenses are $70,000 per year, which is only a savings rate of 30%, it will take 24 years for us to reach financial independence. These numbers might be too optimistic or pessimistic for your scenario. I implore you to run your numbers through the early retirement calculator I have linked down in the description below to see what your situation might be. A quick note about the 4% withdrawal rate that we assumed. There's a financial rule called the 4% rule, which is basically a quick way to calculate how much money you can withdraw from your investments once you have hit your retirement goal. Some say the 4% rule is unrealistic and risky because of inflation and the fact that just because the S&P has historically returned 7% does not mean that it will in the future. If the expectation seems too high for you, you can reduce your annual withdrawal rate or your expected rate of return, or both. Keep in mind that this will increase the amount of time until you hit your crossover point if you keep your income and expense assumptions the same. However, it may be a more conservative and safe approach. You don't necessarily have to live a stunted life with FIRE. It doesn't mean ramen for dinner every night. If you plan appropriately, you can live the life you've always dreamed of. However, it will require more time and money up front. Now that I've demonstrated it doesn't require tens of millions of dollars to retire early, let's talk about some of the reasons why one might want to follow FIRE and reach financial independence early. The most obvious benefit is you'll never have to work a lousy, boring, stressful job that you don't like ever again. If you adhere to FIRE, you'll be able to spend your time however you see fit. If you follow FIRE to a T, you'll have all of your money problems solved. Now, I'm not advocating that you stop everything challenging in your life and sit in your backyard sipping Mai Tais all day. Far from it. With your money worries handled, you'll have more time than ever to pursue your passions. You'll finally have time to pursue that writing career you've been putting off, or learning how to cook, or spending more time homeschooling your children. You could even start a business. Mr. Money Mustache, for example, probably makes way more money now than he did working his 9-to-5 job because he's simply following his passion, sharing his experience and knowledge about financial independence with his followers. Who knows what the future will hold for you? So if owning your own time is your jam, then FIRE may be the right path for you. To many of you, though, this might sound too good to be true. What could possibly go wrong? Next, let's take a look at some of the pitfalls of FIRE. I hate to break this to you, but there's a chance that FIRE might not work out. FIRE is not a very flexible plan on the downside. If you estimate that your monthly expenses are going to be $3,000, but you have a surprise medical bill that costs $5,000, well, that throws a huge wrench not only into your own personal life, but into the time horizon that you can expect to reach financial independence. If you and your family plan to take a vacation that wasn't accounted for at the beginning of your FIRE journey, that's also going to set you back. Anything that will increase your expenses is going to set back the time horizon for you reaching your financial independence crossover point. You can do all the planning you want up front, but life doesn't give a damn about you or your FIRE plan. It may sound surprising, but adhering to FIRE may actually increase your anxiety when it comes to thinking about money. There's a real chance that following FIRE will make your life in the here and now miserable. You may be so busy penny pinching and pursuing the next opportunity to make more and more money that you'll miss out on all the experiences and lose sight of why you're following FIRE in the first place. It's easy to sit here and say that you want to retire as quickly as possible and you do not care about the quality of life in your retirement. You're happy to sacrifice now as long as you never have to work again. But your current expectations may not align with your future expectations or desires. For instance, you may not have a family right now, but it is one of the great joys in life for a lot of people. If you plan for a slim yearly retirement income, but you're used to lavish vacations in a really nice apartment, there's going to be a really difficult, almost impossible transition for you to make. It's a harsh reality, but FIRE is a lot easier if you are young, single, and have no children. It's really easy to envision retiring early, living by yourself on the beach somewhere, but it's very possible and very likely that you may want a family someday, and you have to build that expectation into your future FIRE calculations. Bachelor you has to care about future you if you think at all that you're going to want a family or a house in the future. At the end of the day, if you do end up avoiding all the pitfalls of FIRE and reach financial independence early, then there's one existential question facing everybody at the end of it, and that is, what do you do with all your free time? Living without a purpose could lead to loneliness and even depressive episodes, so be wary. If you don't plan ahead to use your time pursuing your passions or spending all your time with your family, then what's the purpose of FIRE in the first place? I'm not guaranteeing that FIRE is going to be possible for everyone, and it's certainly not a cure-all for all your problems right now. Unfortunately, the only way to get to the end of the road without a trust fund is hard work. Even if it's not immediately obvious to you how you can reach your crossover point quickly, it's still important to question your limiting assumptions and beliefs. Ask yourself questions like, why can't I double my current savings rate? Why can't I seek a raise at my current job or pick up a side hustle? At the end of the day, you'll end up more aware of your current situation. Perhaps the most important lesson we can learn from FIRE is that you have the power to take control of your future and focus on what matters to you most. With discipline and focus, you can live the life you want to a little earlier than you might expect. That's all for this video. If you like the content, please like and subscribe to the channel so I know to continue to make content like this going forward. If you have any questions or comments about fire, please leave them in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.